Hi everyone, welcome to today's video. My name's Stephanie and today I have a couple of upcoming Cracked releases to share with you. First off, I want to give a big thank you to Cracked for sponsoring this video. So while that means I'm being paid to swatch and share these with you all, my review is still 100% my own, the same as with my non-sponsored videos. So first we have the Maxin and Relaxin collection, which is a 6-piece lineup of these serene winter shimmers filled with Pisces energy to celebrate Monique's birthday. And we also have their Jelly of the Month, as well as a bonus shade inspired by a very popular Pahlish pickup shade. I do also have some more general information to share in case you missed it from Cracked, including some price increases, some discontinued shades, which I know are bummers, but in the good news, we do also have a birthday sale to look forward to. So there's definitely a lot to share in this video. I have timestamps for everything, of course, in the description box, but for now, let me just show you the swatches. The first polish we have is Chasing Calm, and this one is described as a light gray jelly. So as expected with jelly formulas, it is very sheer. This one had a really nice formula too that you can see was super even coverage on the first coat alone. It's self-leveled beautifully, even in my problem area in the upper right-hand corner of my nail. So I pretty much had no issues with the formula or application on this one. It built up really nicely in 2 and 3 coats, each coat adding a little bit more obscurity to the visible nail line, but I think it is still noticeable, especially because it is such a light color, though I did really have to look for it on the 3rd coat here on my thumb. For my full hand swatch, I did want to show this over my 2 blurring base coats, so I'm showing 2 coats of the polish on its own on my pointer and pinky, but then 1 coat of the polish over 1 coat of Polish for Days Briar Rose on my middle finger and Cotton Candy on my ring finger. I definitely prefer how it looks over Briar Rose. You can see just how much more coverage you get with a blurring base. Next up we have Peace Within Me, and this one is described as a blurple metallic, and it also is apparently the revamp of Stuck on Monday Blues, which was one of Cracked Polish's very first limited edition shades, I believe, and one that I sadly don't have in my collection. That being said, this one had a gorgeous formula, super pigmented, very full coverage on the first coat. Honestly, almost a 1-coater. I just had a little bit of a light spot in the left side of my nail. So depending on your nail length and your application, you might be able to get away with this in just 1 coat, but I just did 2 for the sake of doing a complete manicure. And at first I was kind of confused by this being described as a blurple because it's definitely very much a sapphire blue, but I did notice more of that purple shift in more extreme lighting. It is pretty subtle though, especially compared to how dark the base color looks. So overall, I think the blue shimmer that you see head on is very overpowering. So even though it is described as a blurple, I would say it's very, very blue leaning. Next we have Sheer Serenity, and this one is described as a sheer rose filled with different sizes of white and silver shimmers. No surprise, I really love this one. It's just a very dainty, whimsical princess kind of pink. As the name suggests though, it is also a very sheer kind of shade, almost having this really lightly tinted pink base with a little bit of warmth, but the shimmers in here are definitely very icy, being white and silver. So this had another super smooth, gorgeous formula that was very even coverage, and it builds up beautifully in 2 or 3 coats depending on your preference. I feel like 3 coats can obscure the nail line a decent amount because of all the white shimmer. It really shines, especially in more direct kind of lighting, but you can still see some visible nail line. And again, because this one is more sheer, for my full hand swatch, I decided to do 1 coat of Sheer Serenity over the blurring bases on my middle and ring fingers. Since this polish is more on the pink side, I definitely think the Cotton Candy soft focus works a little bit better. It just doesn't make it as muted or neutral as Briar Rose. But I feel like the 2 coats on its own over my pinky and pointer fingers doesn't look that bad either. Then we have Hush Hush, which is a nude brown with rose pink magnetic shimmers. This one has a very true jelly kind of base, as you can see here on the first coat. It is pretty sheer. There is that subtle wash of that color where it's kind of this rosy brown. I can kind of see how the magnetic shimmer has a little bit of this icy pink sort of color, but it's also very icy white or silver at the same time, so it's not a super strong pinky color if that's what you're looking for. At least I don't really think the pink color shines the best in the cat eye effect, which is what you're seeing here, because there's such a strong contrast between that more icy white silver magnetic against the brown base. If you wear this unmagnetized like on the left or with the velvet effect on the right, it does pull through a little bit more with that like rosy pink color, but it's still also very brown at the same time, which you can also see here clearly in more direct sunlight. So for my full hand swatch, I'm wearing 2 coats of the polish over a clear base coat. I have the glass bead on my pointer, velvet on my middle, cat eye on my ring, and unmagnetized on my pinky. The initial bottle shot wasn't a good angle to show off the magnetic, so hopefully you can see it a lot better here. While I don't love this color on me, I think it's maybe like a little too dark or something, I love how it looks as a magnetic. It's just so glassy and gemmy. The next shade we have is Silk Pillowcase, and this one is described as a silver with silver shimmers. I pretty much would call this a silver metallic polish. As you can see here, it is very highly pigmented on the first coat alone, not quite as close to being a one coater like Peace Within Me. In certain angles you can see through to some bald spots here and there, but I pretty much got this fully opaque in just 2 coats. And as you saw, the formula was really smooth, very easy to apply, not really brushstrokey, which is typical with some metallic polishes. So with this particular shade, you don't need to be extra careful with applying your polish as straight as possible. And rounding out the collection, we have Undisturbed, which is a midnight blue-gray with teal and silver shimmers with a hint of a purple shift. So this is a very dark and moody kind of shimmer. It had another beautiful formula, super smooth and easy to apply, pretty decently pigmented as well. As you can see here on the first coat, it's very even coverage for the most part. I just had a little bit of a bald spot near the left side of my nail, and because this color is so dark, it is pretty much fully opaque in just 2 coats alone. I wouldn't describe this as being a super glowy shimmer necessarily, but there is a lot of contrast between the lighter colors of the shimmer and the much deeper base. And as mentioned before, if you see this in more extreme lighting, the shimmers go from this blue to purple kind of shift. The jelly of the month is called Out of the Blue, and it's actually described as a sky blue crelly, which means it's going to be a little bit more pigmented than a much traditionally glassy or transparent jelly. On the first coat here, you could definitely see straight through to my nail line, so it does look like a jelly, but with the more coats you do, the more coverage you're gonna get. It just kind of has this more milky or cloudy sort of quality to it, but in a good way, if that makes sense, which you can already see here on the second coat. It just provides a lot more coverage. This is what a lot of other jellies can look like on 3 coats usually, where the nail line is very heavily obscured, and so as expected, doing a 3rd coat increases the coverage even more. It also intensifies the color a little bit too, almost deepening it, but I would say the coverage is the bigger highlight with more of a crelly kind of formula. And I don't think I had time to mention it, but the actual formula itself was also really nice. I was a little worried at first just because the initial application didn't seem super even, but it did self-level beautifully after a second or 2, so it was really lovely overall. And just like my other full hand swatches for the lighter sheer shades, I have 1 coat over Briar Rose on my middle finger and over Cotton Candy on my ring. Then for the bonus shade, we have Freezy, and this is a sheer white with blue and green shimmers. As I'm sure you can guess, this was created as an alternative version, I guess, to Refraction, which was a polished pickup shade from a couple of months ago. This has somewhat of a similar formula, being a very sheer, ethereal, glowy kind of white polish. You can see the first coat is a very subtle wash of that white tinted base, and you get a ton of that shimmer popping through. I would say the shimmers in this are maybe a little bit more varied in size, where there are some slightly larger shimmer-sized particles, almost looking like very tiny flakies, and it does build up beautifully in 2 or 3 coats depending on how you want to wear it, though I did notice the formula on this was a little bit thicker than the other polishes that I've tried so far, or maybe not that it was thicker, but it just didn't self-level as smoothly or as easily as the other shades. So I think I would add a couple of drops of thinner to this bottle just to thin it out a little bit more. I think that really helps with self-leveling. I don't know if anyone else is gonna struggle with it, but I just had the experience and wanted to share it. And surprise, I have one more polish to share, and that is Get the Fuck Out Ice, which is their charity polish that recently came out. It's available for pre-order right now, but it's described as a dusky, icy blue packed with a pink to gold to orange shifting shimmer. I literally just got this in the mail the day before this video goes up, so I'm so sorry I don't have any full hand swatches for this in direct sunlight so you can see it in all its glory, but I will be sharing it in an upcoming video and maybe even in a short if you really want to see it. But yeah, it looks super gorgeous on its own here. I would say the color description is pretty accurate for the most part. I guess I wouldn't really call it a dusky blue, but maybe it just depends on how many coats you do. Doing a 3rd coat as seen here really brightens and intensifies that sky blue base, which is such a beautiful contrast to that peachy golden kind of shimmer. It is such a beautiful polish with a powerful message. Moving on to comparisons, we're starting with Chasing Calm, and I knew I had to see this next to Cirque's Dove Jelly, which is their light gray jelly. I'm going to be showing them in 2 and 3 coats since that's usually how I would wear my jellies, and on 2 coats they look pretty similar, I guess arguably on 3 as well. The biggest difference is in their temperature, where Cracked is more of a true neutral gray. I would say that Cirque is a little bit warmer, and also a bit more sheer too. Then for Peace Within Me, here it is next to a couple of Mooncat blues. We have House of Hades on the left, which is a much more vibrant, glowy blue shimmer, not really a metallic formula. It does have an indigo base, but it's just overall a lot brighter than the Cracked. I would say that Rue Morgue is a lot closer in terms of the color, but visually it does look a little different, where it's more of that speckly shimmer kind of finish compared to the smooth metallic of Cracked. The only other smooth blue metallic that I have is Olivav's Temperance, which came out recently in their winter collection this past season. In the bottle, they might look kind of similar, but Temperance is definitely a much brighter shade of blue and also a different hue of blue. It unfortunately is really hard to pick up on camera, so I'm sorry if it looks similar, they are not. Then for sheer Serenity, I knew this was going to remind me a lot of Mooncat's The Stolen Kiss from their Baroque collection, where it has these icy white shimmers in a very light pink tinted base. And it also is kind of reminding me of Holo Taco's Pretty Privilege, which is a magnetic, but leaving it unmagnetized, it actually does look kind of similar to sheer Serenity, although both the Holo Taco and the Mooncat are a little bit cooler toned in their pink bases. Cracked is a bit warmer and more sheer. Next for Hush Hush, this immediately reminded me of ILNP's Sugar Plum, kind of being this dark pink sort of color, but obviously Hush Hush is a bit more brown. And for reference, I did also want to show it next to Cirque's Bay, which is more of that true icy pink color. So while they might look kind of similar just in the bottles, if you're wearing them in the cat eye effect, there's definitely going to be a noticeable difference. And for reference, here is what Hush Hush's base looks like next to Mocha Mousse and Simply Mauvelous, which are a brown and pink jelly respectively. Hush Hush is obviously a lot darker. Next for Silk Pillowcase, I knew I had to show this next to Mooncat's Outlaw Country, which is their silvery gunmetal kind of gray metallic, as well as Olive Ave's The Star, which is their silver metallic that came out this past winter. I feel like the cracked looks really similar to Mooncat in the bottle, but on the nail, I think it actually looks closer to Olive Ave because Mooncat has a much deeper, more gunmetal-y gray base, but Olive Ave is also a little bit brighter, so they're not exact dupes, but they're all silver metallics. Then for Undisturbed, this reminded me of a couple other cracked blurples like Artistic Expression and Crisis Averted. I think between these two, I would say Crisis Averted is the closest, especially in terms of the visual finish, if that makes sense. Artistic Expression does have a beautiful shimmer, but it's a lot more glowy and also a little glittery too, with a much stronger teal blue kind of color, while the shimmer in Crisis Averted is kind of closer, but the main difference is that it has a darker base. Moving on to Out of the Blue, here it is next to Breakfast at Monique's, which is the closest light blue cracked jelly that I have, but that one is a little bit more aqua, turquoise leaning in color. And speaking of aqua, here it is next to Cirque's Aqua Jelly, which I would say is even more of a true sky blue color. In comparison, I would say Out of the Blue is a little bit more cornflower leaning. And for reference, here it is next to Dimension Nails Blueberry Flax Milk, which is another true sky blue color, but this one's also a lot lighter or more pastel. So when it comes to that cornflower color, the closest that I had was Cirque's Morningtide. These are extremely similar, especially in terms of value, like they have the same level of saturation or color intensity, but the hue is slightly different. It is a little bit more of that true cornflower in Cirque, or maybe a little more periwinkle leaning, but they are really close. Then for Freezy, here it is next to Refraction, which is the original Pahlish pickup shade from a couple of months ago. So as I'm sure you can tell, it's not an exact dupe, which I'm sure that's not what Monique was going for. It is just an alternate kind of version, so there are some noticeable differences. Here I'm showing 2 coats of each, and I will be showing them in 3 coats in just a second, but I would say that Refraction is a little bit more sheer, maybe more like a true jelly, while Freezy is a little more like a crelly. The shimmer color is also more green in Refraction, while it has that stronger aqua blue in Freezy. And also speaking of the shimmer, I would say it's a lot smaller and more uniform in size in Refraction compared to the more varied sizes in Freezy. And lastly, for Get the Fuck Out Ice, I wanted to show this next to Starrily's False Awakening, which is a light sky blue kind of jelly with more of a yellow golden shimmer. So I thought Pahlish's Nudis from Pahlish pickup a few years ago would be a little bit closer because it has a similar, blue base, but with more of a reddish shimmer, while it's more of that warm peachy color in Cracked. So yeah, there are some slight differences in the shimmer colors, the base colors, but at least between these two, I would say that Pahlish is a little bit closer, at least in how it looks visually. So that wraps up my swatches and comparisons of Crack's upcoming Maxin and Relaxin collection, as well as their Jelly of the Month and bonus shade. As always, I would love to know what you think of these releases because in general, I just thought they were really gorgeous. Starting with the collection itself, I love that it's still a focus on these like winter shimmers, even though I definitely am very much over like the winter and the cold. February is still very much winter, so I appreciate Monique focusing on that and leaning into like the cozy, dreamy Pisces energy to celebrate her birthday. But objectively, they were amazing polishes with great formulas. The magnetic was super gorgeous with how easily it magnetized, even if the color still isn't 100% my favorite. I wouldn't be surprised if that ends up being a pretty popular shade because it just kind of has that look of being a really gel like magnetic. And of course, the jelly of the month and bonus shades were just as gorgeous. I think maybe the jelly of the month is my favorite just because it has such a beautiful, soft blue color with a really lovely formula. I do think the bonus shade Freezy is still really pretty because you know I love a shimmery white kind of polish, but I'm super curious to hear like what you all think of it, especially as an alternative version of Refraction, because I was pretty sure that Monique said that Refraction was going to be coming back for Rewind later this year, but maybe something happened with it, and so she's dropping an alternate version, which, don't get me wrong, I do appreciate, because obviously with Polish Pickup, those are, you know, limited edition, and it's nice to have something kind of close to it, but I feel like it is still noticeably different than the original, and I kind of hate to say it, but I do like the original a bit more, but this one still is really pretty at the same time. So yeah, definitely make sure you let me know what you think of these, which ones are your favorites. And now to share some more general information or updates on Cracked, just in case you missed it. They are going to be increasing their prices starting on February 21st. The increase is only $1 to $2 depending on the type of finish or just the type of product that it is. I should have the graphic on the screen now. If not, I will link to the post in the pinned comments or the description box. And unfortunately, Cracked had to unexpectedly discontinue a handful of shades due to a pigment issue, basically, where the supplier said that there was a change in one of the pigments and it's just different now. So unfortunately, the following shades are going to be discontinued once they sell out, and those are Apricot Whisper, Spring Sprout, Banana Powder, Still Got Burnt, Color Correction, and Where's My Bliss. Definitely really upsetting. A couple of these were some of my favorite shades from Cracked, specifically Spring Sprout and Banana Powder. I really love those two, and especially Banana Powder because it just had such a gorgeous formula for a pastel yellow. The good news is that the closest that I have to a dupe was Olive Ave's Sunshine, which I believe they just brought back last year, but it's still a shame with the other polishes as well. I think the only one I'm personally kind of meh on is Where's My Bliss, which I know is kind of an unpopular opinion because, don't get me wrong, it is a gorgeous color. Like, I love that shade of teal or aqua, turquoise, whatever, for summer, but I just personally didn't have the best time with the application or formula with that. It just didn't really self-level as nicely as I wanted it to, but I know that a lot of other people really love it. Maybe they didn't have those issues, so you know, I just want to share my experience at least as a little refresher. So yeah, if any of those shades have been on your wish list, I would definitely look into adding them to your cart just so you don't miss out on them, because they are going to be discontinued. But the good news is that these are all going to be launching on Friday, February 20th at 8 a.m. Pacific time. So they're all going to be listed between $10 and $13 depending on their finishes. And the launch is also going to be alongside their birthday sale, which is just for the one day, the 20th, but it's going to be 20% off site-wide, and you can get an additional 10% off if you use my affiliate code YOGI10. So if you do want to get any of these for the lowest possible price, February 20th is the day to do it, because again, the price increase will be on the 21st. As always, a big thank you to everybody who does use my affiliate link or code, because it directly supports me and my channel. But even if you don't plan on picking anything up, I still would love to hear your thoughts on these releases down below so we can chat about it. But thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!